Well, welcome everyone to this evening's Delta Upsilon programming, Academic Excellence in Virtual Times. We are really grateful for the opportunity to have two guests this evening, and they will tell you a little bit more about yourself in a moment. But I know we have almost about 20 participants in the call, and we're not going to go necessarily one by one, but if people would be willing to either put in the chat or unmute themselves for one moment and share what chapter they're from, we would love to hear the chapters that are represented throughout our conversation this evening. So what chapter are you?
Iowa State.
Iowa State.
University of South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Indiana University.
How are you?
North Dakota.
North Dakota.
Cornell.
Kansas State.
Cornell and Kansas State.
Missouri.
Missouri.
The Colorado Colony.
Wonderful. Colorado Colony.
From Rochester.
Rochester, very good.
The Bucknell Colony.
Bucknell Colony. Thanks for being on here, Pat. Awesome. Embry-Riddle. Good to hear your voice, Gavin. Well, if you saw, Lindsay got excited because she is an alumni of the University of South Carolina when you said that you were from the South Carolina chapter. So that is really exciting to hear. So in addition to knowing what chapters are on the line, I also wanted to hear how many weeks out are we from finals from some of the participants on the call? So if we could just take turns sharing that information as well.
About a month from Cornell.
1 month from finals?
Same here. A month from Mizzou.
A month? We have some people in the chat saying 4 weeks or 2 to 3 weeks.
About 3 weeks.
About 3 weeks.
3 weeks here too.
3 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
1 week. 1 to 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks.
Okay. So it varies a little bit for everyone, anywhere from 1 week to 4 weeks out. But we know that being successful on these online virtual classes, learning platforms is more important than ever as we approach the final season, as that can really impact our grades and our members' grades. So if we are going to amp up the support that we're providing our students, our members, our leadership, this is the time. So I also wanted to make sure that you all joined this conversation for a purpose. So if people would be willing to share what they hope to get out of this conversation, what they hope to learn from our experts on the call or from one another. Any particular areas of interest or topics that you'd like to discuss?
I think it would just be cool to see what everyone else is doing to kind of encourage and motivate the brothers of their chapter. I mean, we have our ideas. I'd kind of like to hear what everyone else is doing too.
Sure, we can certainly leave space at the end to do that.
Time management stuff, like the best time to wake up, best time to get on your homework and stuff like that.
Certainly.
I'd love to see what everybody, what their schools are doing about PassFail versus, having an option not to do PassFail. Because I know people from our chapter in a tough position because we have optional PassFail, which seems kind of just you're expected to not do PassFail, So I wanted to see if anybody else shares that sentiment or has a different situation.
Great question. We know that opting into PassFail is something on many students' minds right now. Any other items that you want to make sure we cover, Brad?
Yeah, I was going to actually address about
possible learning over, we have different learning styles for different people. So addressing it for brothers who don't necessarily do well with virtual learning normally.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
To follow that, something that a lot of my brothers have asked me about, and that affects like me personally, is I don't focus well when I'm in my room or at home. I'm someone who like goes to the library and takes advantage of the fact that everybody's there being quiet, studying and not messing around or whatever. But that's one of the biggest things I think a lot of my friends are struggling with. And I wanted to see if anybody has good ways to manage that.
Okay. Very good. Well, we can ensure that we will address these topics, and if not, we can certainly allow for questions at the end for Lindsay and Kathy, but I want to go ahead and introduce them both formally. And in that, I also want to pose a question to them both. So Lindsay serves as an academic advisor in the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And we have Cathy Durano, who is a clinical educator at Wichita State University and a chapter advisor at the Wichita chapter. And she's been advising that group for the past 9 years, and is certainly an asset to that advisory team. So with that, Lindsay, if you wouldn't mind just going ahead and kicking us off and sharing, how do you work with students in your professional role, and how has your interaction changed with students in the past month since moving towards virtual learning and advising in all of those capacities?
Yeah. Well, hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. Like Nicole said, I'm an academic advisor in the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Tennessee. My population of students, I mostly work with natural science majors, and I work with all of our pre-health students. I have a caseload of about 350 students, so I meet with almost all of them every single semester. So advising at UT requires our students to come in and chat with us almost every semester to plan for their courses through graduation. My role has shifted only a little bit. I still, have my same advising caseload. I still meet with students. It's all virtual now. We use Zoom. We still have one-on-one individual advising meetings, but I also do some group appointments, and we're also transitioning all of our orientation online as well. So any transfer or prospective students will also be advised virtually. So not much has changed, just adapting to, working from home and not having the normal, in-person interaction.
Thank you, Lindsay. And Cathy, will you go ahead and answer the same?
Yes, I'm Cathy Durano, and I teach courses in the College of Applied Studies, which for me, that means I'm in the elementary education program. So I teach 5 different courses right now. One of them has been online since the beginning, but the others had to transition to online. And it's been really interesting to me to see how students that maybe have never taken an online class before, some of them have struggled. And I have to tell you, I told Nicole this, but when this first happened at Wichita exec, and I said, we probably ought to have, our scholarship person ought to do a little something about how to be successful in an online course. And, I love these guys, but they actually rolled their eyes at me and said, oh no, we all get it. We all know how to do it. But I have taught enough online to know that everyone does not get it. One of my roommate in college, the online class, and she mistakenly thought online meant really flexible due dates. And as that seems, you have to realize that online does not mean complete flexibility. You might be able to listen to the PowerPoint or whatever at 3, and it doesn't mean that there are no due dates. So make sure that all your members understand that, even though it maybe is obvious to you, they don't all know that. So that would be one of the reasons that I was really excited to be asked to be on this little panel.
We are so grateful. So moving beyond there, and the structure of the conversation moving forward is I've prepared some questions for Lindsay and Kathy on topics that I think would be helpful to you all to marinate on and to merge back to your chapters. Luckily, they've been some of the topics that you all have already brought up. So that is excellent. And then from there, we will discuss how we can apply this, how we can utilize the change in the method of education to support our members to succeed academically and to have the highest GPA within your IFC and to being promoted or to promote scholarship amongst Delta Upsilon. So we will go ahead and dive into those questions and then move from there. So our first question is, knowing that most students have transitioned to online classes for a couple of weeks now, what is a best practice that you, both Lindsay and Kathy, would share with a student to end the semester strong in their online coursework? Lindsay, do you want to go ahead and start with this question?
Yeah, sure. So that's a great question. I would say what I'm hearing most often from my students and what was mentioned just a few moments earlier is that most everyone is struggling to stay motivated in their online classes because the structure is so different than being on campus where you are required to be in in-person classes for a certain, amount of time, a certain number of days per week. And so how do you sort of manage this new schedule that it was kind of thrust upon you in the middle of the semester with little preparation? So my suggestions to stay motivated would be to sort of identify your long-term goals and realize that what's happening right now ideally is an anomaly, and we will move through this as quickly as possible. So it might be helpful for your members to reflect on what are some of their long-term goals, and that might help them, push through the remaining couple of weeks of the semester to end strongly. The second thing that I would say to power through the rest of the semester is this is really the time to be communicating with your instructors as much as possible. So if something is not clicking, if you're having a problem with technology or you're not understanding material, you really have to communicate with your professors because there's really no way for them to know if you are not connecting with something because they're not seeing you a couple of times per week. So communication is going to be essential for being successful for the rest of the semester.
All right, and I would add to that is that you might also encourage your members to look at their syllabi. In this case where classes started out as in-person and changed to online, I know in my classes my syllabi had to change because things that we would have done in class as activities, now we're not in class. And so I made them assignments so that they would have to do them at home. So things that you're looking at the old syllabus thinking this is all there is might not be the current up-to-date syllabus. So encourage people to look and see if it's changed, because they very well might have. Other thing that I notice as I'm grading things is, if I have a due 11:59, I get 90 of my assignments posted at 11:58, right before. And then when I read them, it's so obvious some of them waited way too long to look at what the assignment was and to start it. Because, they just kind of BS through a certain portion and you can roll. So I would guess just really and pushing people to not look at that due date as that's the day I start my assignment, but looking at, at least a week or 2 weeks in front of that to work up to that assignment, not waiting until the last minute.
Excellent tips. That might seem common sense, but during these times are more important than ever to rely on your syllabi, to communicate with your professor. And oftentimes students will utilize the office hours of a professor in person, but note that they're still available to your members online as well. Thank you both. The next question is, what wisdom would you provide regarding time management during this season of virtual education?
Yeah, so this is another thing that I've been hearing a lot of my students struggle with, is managing their time now that they're out of their, non-traditional educational environment. Someone mentioned earlier that working at home is extremely challenging because you used to work in the library, which was like a dedicated space where you could like focus only on work, and then you came home and that was a space for relaxing and unwinding. And so it's hard that both of those are combined now. I would say if you can try to encourage your members to regiment their schedule as much as possible, and I don't necessarily mean that you need to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning every day and study for 3 hours, but make sure you try to wake up at the same time every day and dedicate, 1 hour to studying for chemistry or another hour for English. And if you can, replicate that for the rest of the semester, it might help you just stay on top of all of your requirements and help you feel a little bit more motivated as well. I would say another strategy that I have is you might have to have a conversation with the people you're living with right now, whether it's your family, other roommates, and you might need to say, I really need from 9 to 3 to be a relatively quiet time, or is there a space in the house where I can go that will allow me to focus on my work that might be separate from your bedroom? There are studies that say that, students are not as successful when they work, from their beds or even in their bedroom, just because of the, natural environment where it, promotes relaxation and everything like that. So it will take some adjustment, and I would also encourage your members to not be, so hard on themselves, because this is a really scary time. So hopefully that everyone can give each other a little bit of grace and still try to protect their mental health during this challenge.
And I agree with everything Lindsay said. I would suggest that when you find that place that's a good place to study, having a list of tasks. I'm a person that loves to write things down on a list just so I can cross it off. I sometimes write things down that I've already done just so I can cross it off. So, now that you know me, you know that. But it helps to have a plan for the day. These are the tasks I want to get accomplished. The other thing I found helpful to me to get me motivated to grade all this junk that I'm having people do is I'll set a timer on my, on my phone that says, I'm going to work for this hour. I'm not going to get up and do laundry. I'm not going to get up and do anything until that timer goes off. And so I set it for an hour. You know what your limits are though. And then I get up and I do something else just for a break, like walk around in my backyard or something, but just a little bit of time that I can put for this long. And then give yourself a little treat of going and doing something else or watching one episode of whatever you're binge watching. But that way, you have that limit built in so that you don't sit there all day and then the end of the day comes and you think, oh my gosh, I didn't do anything but binge watch. So make that list and work about getting through it.
Great pointers. So to even streamline that question further, so you all shared that you're about 1 week to 1 month out from finals, and I would assume that many individuals on the call are vice presidents of academic excellence. And is anyone serving in a different role on their executive board or a chair position?
Yeah, I'm house manager also.
In addition to VP of academic excellence?
Yes.
Awesome.
It happens, man.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, if you are not currently serving as your Vice President of Academic Excellence, this is certainly something to still convey to your members. But And both Lindsay and Kathy, how could the Vice President of Academic Excellence, which serves as a peer to their members, be supporting other members who are struggling academically as their institution moves into finals? What are some tips you would provide?
Well, I think that one thing that you need to know is the chapter is looking to you as a leader. So go ahead and talk about these issues and say, if you're struggling, please reach out to me. Go ahead and have grade checks, particularly amongst the men in your chapter that might be struggling. Another thing is just to talk about things like beating the deadline, that you don't want to wait till the end. If it says it's due on Friday, let's try to get it done by Thursday. And also knowing that these online virtual classes are different than being, face to face with your professor, where you're going to at least pretend like you're listening. And on something like this, where we can't see you, I don't know what you're doing. So I think the thing you need to teach the students or your brothers is that they need to find ways to engage themselves in whatever the lecture is that's virtual. And that might mean taking notes. It might mean, writing down questions that they have and going ahead and putting them in the chat, or even quizzing themselves after. But just anything that they can do to encourage active listening when they're sitting in that, nice comfy bed and not incredibly interested in what the lecture is about. They need to make themselves figure out a way to be interested.
I would definitely echo what Cathy has already said. I think outreach in some way with students who are struggling academically is definitely something to consider. I also think it will be important to maybe sort of understand why students are struggling academically. Is it because of online instruction, or has this class been challenging from the beginning, and everything's just kind of piling up? As an academic advisor, I always encourage students to come to me with any problems, because it might not just be the class, it might be other things that are happening. So I would encourage you as a leader to talk to your members about taking advantage of campus resources as well, like talking to their academic advisor or student success center if they need help with tutoring, because those resources should still be available to you. Or maybe something's going on and it's not an appropriate major, different things like that. So letting them know that just because the institution has moved to an online format for the temporary future doesn't mean that the resources on campus are no longer available for students. But also I think group study sessions could still be helpful, or even if you have a Zoom up and you're just working on homework together for an hour and you're both muted, it's just nice to know that someone else is going through the same thing that you are. So it's definitely a time to get creative, since we can't all be together in person.
What's one more thing that you should think about just all the time for your job as academic vice president is that you need to keep the chapter informed about when drop day is, because our drop with the W actually is Friday. So at Wichita State, you can still drop if you need to. And that it's probably time to be making appointments to see your advisor for next semester. And enrollment is probably going on for the fall now too. So just keeping them informed of those things, especially where we're not on campus, will really help you establish yourself as that leader and person that they should go to.
That's really practical wisdom in not only continuing or adjusting the methods that we were utilizing previously to promote academic excellence, but also now providing reminders for deadlines and upcoming things to consider for academic success for the future is also important, so that people don't miss anything, and I think could be really beneficial to the members of your chapter. So we mentioned support networks or resources on campus. What other ones beyond the ones that you both have named should members be considering looking into to find additional support and resources during this time?
So your career center should still be operating as well. So if you have students who are, graduating this semester or even in the fall, and they're thinking about, what are my next steps? What am I supposed to be doing? They can still meet with a career counselor or a career coach virtually to talk about strategies, because employment is also going to look a little bit different after graduation too. So, that's definitely one piece, but a lot of career counselors or coaches can also help students explore, different major options or opportunities to do, different things over the summer. So maybe you had a member who had an internship lined up and that fell through, but they still want to do something productive. I would encourage them to reach out to their campus career center. Because not everything is going to be halted. So there might be some other things out there available to them. But previously I mentioned tutoring and academic advising, which are, two big pieces that are still up and running at hopefully every university, but yeah.
And I think the only thing I could add, of course, your writing centers and your math centers, they're all still open. And your advisor is a wealth of knowledge and really does care about you, and it's in your benefit, because I know our university in many cases does not require you to go see your advisor, but you should, even if you're not required, because those people are the ones that generally give recommendations for scholarships, things like that, and they're much more likely to recommend you if they know you. So take this time, make an appointment, talk to them. And the other thing is, don't be afraid to contact your professor. I know sometimes people don't do that. I don't know why. We're people too. We don't bite. Just when you send a text, make sure you use professional voice in it. And even if they've made a mistake and they're wrong, because I have been known to be wrong about things before, is to just say, I think maybe there's a mistake. Make sure your tone of your voice isn't like, you idiot, because that's not what you want to come across, because 9 times out of 10, they didn't mean to make the mistake, and they'll be grateful to and happy to correct it. So don't be afraid to contact your professor. Tell them you don't understand something, or tell them about a mistake you see, or something that's not working on your Blackboard or Canvas or whatever your community uses. But just remember, your professors are people too.
Very true. Lindsay, we had someone that is taking part in this program ask about PassFail. What wisdom would you provide to a student who is in that place where they have the opportunity to opt in, opt out? And how should the members on this call further advise a member that may be in that position?
Yeah, so this is definitely the most popular question I've been receiving as an advisor during this time. Every institution that I know of across the country has implemented some form of PassFail. At UT, we call it satisfactory no credit. So we have a couple different options for our students. In reality, there's a lot of things to consider with PassFail. So I'll hopefully make this as concise as possible. Ultimately, you need to talk to your academic advisor, whether that's a professional advisor or a faculty advisor. They have been receiving, information about the PassFail or satisfactory no credit option for the past couple of weeks. So we're definitely well versed in what that means and what the implications are long term. Ultimately, the goal of PassFail, that option for students, is to provide a safety net because the transition to online instruction was abrupt, and we recognize that there's a lot of factors that go into being successful with online instruction, and the university doesn't want to, penalize students for not performing at the expectation that they usually would if the class was in person. So this is an option to protect you if you need it. There are a couple different implications with PassFail in relation to graduate programs, pre-health programs like medical school, pharmacy school, dentistry, various things like that, but also financial aid, which is a big piece. So your advisor, if they don't know, should direct you to the financial aid office, because if you fail a class or credit a course, that might have negative implications on your financial aid, but it might not. It also might not impact institutional scholarships either, but that's something to consider as well. So there are a lot of pieces at play which your advisor can help walk you through based on your individual situation. But ultimately it is to provide, like I said, a safety net for students. So I have a lot of students who are opting into that option because their organic chemistry class has become extremely challenging, and they're not absorbing the material as well as they should have compared to the beginning of the semester. And that's fine. We talk about what that means long term. So I think talking to your advisor is really the best thing that you can do if you are considering it. We've extended our withdrawal deadline. Some institutions have allowed students to change to pass-fail before final grades are posted, which is what UT is doing. So we require our students to select, pass-fail, satisfactory, no credit, before final grades are. So it's important to talk to your professors to see if you even need to do that, but some might select it afterwards. So it's important to sort of understand those different facets as well. I'm happy to answer any more questions about that too at the end if you all need some clarification.
Yeah, thank you so much for providing that perspective. So it sounds like for individuals participating in this program, the best step in coaching your brothers to navigate this situation is to connect them with their academic advisor. So I'm really grateful for Cathy and Lindsay's wisdom on these topics, but I also want to make sure that we're setting aside time to talk about how you can implement supporting academic excellence even while being away from your brothers, your chapter, maybe a chapter facility or regular meetings. So some questions I want you all to be considering in this moment regarding academic health of your members, your brothers, and your ability to provide support and encouragement. So prior to online coursework, I want you to think about the reports that you were giving during chapter meetings. I want you to think about the events that you were planning to create a culture in your chapter or colony for academic excellence to be a priority, for that to be something that you were known for, that was a bragging right amongst your chapter. I also want you to think if you have access to certain resources or information that could be helpful to have you or members of your academic review committee pinpoint brothers that may need that additional encouragement or those additional resources right now, because even previously to moving online, they were challenged by their academic course load. And then I want you to think about how you and your role have been keeping in touch with your brothers, and especially brothers that you knew were struggling. I want you to also think about who your partners are, your specific partners beyond what Cathy and Lindsay shared, and who you believe could support you in supporting your members, but also the entities on and your campus that are provided to you that could be a support and a resource. And I want you to consider what activities you can modify to provide that virtual support group for your members and to still provide support to brothers to excel in their coursework. And then lastly, I want you to consider how you can recognize your brothers for excelling academically. That doesn't need to stop. And if that was happening in your chapter colony meetings in the past, that is excellent and let's continue it. And if it wasn't happening in the past, this is a perfect time to start something. So with all of that in mind, does anyone have any thoughts or anything noteworthy that came to mind as I prompted those questions for you all to be considering as the Vice President of Academic Excellence, House Manager, or whatever way you serve within your chapter or colony? What are your thoughts?
Well, hey, I'm Matt. I'm from Cornell, and I can at least personally talk about how helpful academic advisors could be, because I dropped a course right before they sent us home and gave us pass-fail option and everything. And now with all this time I got, I was like, I think I actually could do well in this class. So I called my academic advisor and asked if I could get back into it, even though it was past the deadline. And she, like, since this is such a crazy situation, she was able to get me back into it. So now so they definitely can do stuff that you didn't expect them to do and help in ways that normally aren't possible.
Awesome. A testimony of the support system that an academic advisor could be. How then, Matt, to challenge you further, how would you convey that to your chapter members that you had that experience?
Yeah, I told them the story first off, and just to kind of show them, 'cause at least in the college I'm in at Cornell, the advisors are really close with the students, and I know in other programs they're not as close. So I kind of told them that they actually, like, don't be scared of them, be comfortable talking to them. Like, even if you don't think it's something that can happen or is unrealistic, like, you might as well ask. Worst case, they'll say no.
Awesome. I'm glad that you shared that experience. What else are you all thinking about in translating the support mechanisms you had in your chapters previously and moving them now virtually or through a group me? How is that looking within your group right now? Has anyone made any movements to meeting with their academic review committee virtually?
Yes, from University of Houston. So what we do from my academic committee, well, we communicate Snapchat. Mostly what I do is for the members who want to reach out to me. Yesterday a member reached out and I helped them out. For the most part, the safety net's pass and fail for them, and they're really comfortable with that. Most of my majors are business majors, so they're doing pretty fine. You know what they're doing. So my thoughts. I'm bringing speakers in next week and the week after that, so they can get encouraged and be like, oh, you know, VP of academics is bringing somebody in. I need to be serious about academics. That's really my thoughts. Thank you.
Awesome. So the University of Houston, the Houston chapter, is bringing in speakers to, I'm assuming, their virtual chapter meetings, and their Vice President of Academic Excellence is checking in with members through the communication mechanism that works best for them. Dominic, I saw that you might have turned your video on.
Yeah, I know, like, I know the kids have struggled in the past and stuff like that. I've been texting them every week, seeing how they're doing, seeing if they're behind on anything, seeing if I can help them out with something, if they need anything. And I'm really just trying to push the guys to do the best they can. I feel like this is a great opportunity to really improve your GPA this semester. So I really would like to see us go up a lot of grade point average points.
Do you share that message with everyone, that message of encouragement and opportunity, and how so?
So we're doing a $50 gift card to the person who raises their GPA the most. I felt like that was a good idea, motivate people a little bit. You have a lot of extra budget now that, like, you know, semester's over. And I just want to motivate the guys to just keep on doing the work, because especially when you're inside all day, you're not really doing anything. Like, it's easy to lose your motivation.
Certainly. What chapter are you from?
South Carolina.
South Carolina. Very good. So Dominic is taking the perspective of motivation and recognition of members. I think that's a great way to repurpose chapter funds if there is anything that's left over, is to honor those people who are putting additional effort into their academics during this time. That's awesome. What else?
I just wanted to chime in real quick. I'm Guillermo from the Central Florida chapter. So right now I'm joined with our chapter presidents AJ and our alumni advisor Brad. One thing that we've been doing a lot and getting involved with a lot is our alumni. So I know this is more focused on the education aspect in school, but also since a lot of our members have more free time, we've been trying to focus on getting your GPA up, doing better in these classes now that you have more time. But with that being said, you also should have more time to do like any supplemental like educational things. Like there's a lot of resources that we're going to start rolling out, such as like all the LinkedIn courses that are really good for like building your resume and stuff. A lot of universities are offering like free classes online. We're also kind of improving our professional development with just kind of alumni and trying to see if any alumni are open to kind of joining our Zoom calls and mentoring any brothers or kind of giving guidance for any specific career path. So like now that we have more free time, it's definitely a good time to kind of use these other resources.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. So not only taking this time to be successful academically, but to grow professionally and in relationships with those such as advisors who can support academically your members, but also support you developmentally. That's awesome. Any other thoughts?
Yeah,
I did
so
have one. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so I serve as the chapter president of Embry-Riddle down in Daytona Beach, Florida. So our academic advisor is a graduating senior, so he's on his way out. So we're attempting to fill the position over the next couple weeks. So kind of what our focus as an academic excellence kind of platform moving forward has been. Our board as a whole has taken our chapter roster, cut it into sizable chunks, and each board member is responsible for, reaching out and contacting each brother. Kind of what you guys were talking about with the whole PassFail system. That's been the bulk of our conversation because we don't want a lot of our brothers, just from what I've heard, are now taking their foot off the gas, knowing that they can, opt into this and it won't affect their GPA. So we're really trying to push our brothers who are at that B or close to an A or whatever range GPA wise for the grade to, keep pushing. We only have a week or two left of school. So we're really trying to push our brothers who are right there on the precipice of getting a good grade to not opt into that and only allow or, let brothers who are, going through hardship or think that, the classes are not, the material's not being caught up, because a lot of our brothers are aerospace engineers or hands-on engineers and stuff like that. So learning calculus 3 or physics 3 and stuff like that is very difficult to do when you're not being able to interact with your professors. And then on top of that, we've just been doing, following our chapter meetings every Monday on Zoom. I just bounce around people hosting abilities, and we just keep the chat room open for a couple hours. We kind of use that as our study space, since we haven't really had one of those in the past, like a physical room or anything. So we're kind of taking this opportunity to start up some sort of system where we could get together and study together and whatnot.
That's wonderful. And your experience in splitting up the chapter into groups amongst the executive board members, have you all felt that members have engaged, especially in a topic so sensitive as academics, and how they're doing?
Yeah, so the idea we came up with breaking it up, it's then not all on me or one brother to do so, but then it's also allowed us to be a little more personal. So, it's not the big chapter president coming down to talk to you. It's, VP of whatever, recruitment talking about academic stuff. So it kind of allows us to have, to put more energy into having one-on-one conversations. And a lot of the conversations have been more casual and informal, and we kind of, then lead to these questions. So we've used it as primarily a way to talk about academics, but then also like, hey, how are you doing? I know with our school specifically, a lot of the stuff the school and the university has pushed over the last year is mental health and retention, just because our courses are so hard. And now being online, a lot of the courses have been made even more difficult because of, like I said, not being able to interact directly with other people and stuff. So just allowing us to have these informal conversations, as well as, provide tutoring sessions and stuff like that. I know the university has been pushing out different tutors to meet in Zoom chat rooms and stuff. So really just making sure people are aware of all the resources that are out there.
Those are some great bits of wisdom and opportunities for chapters to implement promoting brotherhood one-on-one and utilizing your fellow executive board members as support in promoting academic excellence. Doesn't have to be all on one person. It shouldn't be all on one person, especially if you want to create a culture of academic excellence within your chapter or colony. It needs to be spread amongst majority of members, and utilizing your executive board to do that is a great idea. Thanks, Gavin.
I was going to ask the question, just how can you leverage some of these great ideas into social media posts, or anyway, you've got a lot of high school seniors that are looking for the fall and wanting to join, and these would all be great ideas to put out there to show that fraternities are more than just a party. So I just wondered what people were doing.
Great question. Some of the individuals that have already responded, how are you all sharing with your fraternity and sorority community, or your fraternity and sorority advisor, or on social media, that you're taking and making these steps to continue promoting academics while apart?
I'd say we have a pretty strong relationships with most of the other fraternities at our school. And I know personally I have a lot of friends in them. So I've kind of just been bouncing my ideas off them and hearing what they're doing, and we're each kind of building off each other.
So for our chapter, we've been, I specifically meet weekly with all of the IFC and sorority organizations on our campus. So kind of like what Matt was saying, we're all pretty close and tight knit. But to go to the question about how we're using it to recruit, I think that's something that like a lot of the Fired Up webinars and stuff like that have been pushed out, have been kind of focused on as well. So we've been posting and attempting to create some sort of like story highlights on Instagram, or improving the use of our Facebook page, because we don't have an account for our chapter currently. So looking into doing that, and then promoting different professional resources. I've been putting them in our business chat, but the question you kind of posed about using it for recruitment and putting it on social media has kind of made me think, why can't we use it for like social highlights, like make a whole little section about just the different webinars and stuff that are open, because most brothers and most people on our campus probably aren't aware, despite you guys sending out so many emails, aren't aware of all the different webinars or different online resources that are really at our fingertips. Like one of the other brothers in this video chat was talking about LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff. Like now's a perfect time to really start honing in on resume stuff, or creating these online accounts to, further your development as an individual. So that's kind of what we're looking to do moving forward.
Great.
I know we've been posting a lot of COVID relief donation. We're doing a fund for that on our Instagram right now, but also we had like 20-30 kids apply for an IFC scholarship that our school offers, and I think all those kids are really competitive, and I know we had miles more than any other chapter apply for it. So I'm pretty confident we're going to get that, and that's really something that we could promote on the Instagram page. That would look good to a lot of incoming students.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are in the middle of a t-shirt fundraiser for COVID response teams in like our local hospitals and stuff. So we have that also on social media.
Yeah, so this is a great opportunity to be promoting facets of the fraternal experience that aren't as widely noted or acknowledged, but you all have those social media platforms to do so. So communicating not only what you're doing academically or for professional development, but also philanthropically is excellent. So I wanted to share a few tips that I have been discussing with chapters that I'm working with in promoting academics, and then we can give some time for questions for both Cathy and Lindsay. So some ideas that I have if you're currently considering what you can do to promote and revisit the topic of academics with your brothers. I recommend creating a group meet or Slack groups amongst people with similar majors, especially those that may be noteworthy in how difficult they are. I recommend setting up a Zoom or utilizing another video platform study room. I know that you all do that physically when you're together. You go to the library, set up a study room, and there's no reason why you can't do that virtually as well. Just to be in community and know that other people are studying too. And if you do have questions or there's some people need to process externally, there's a space for that. And you could set that up every day, every other day, twice a week. But I think that that could provide an opportunity for members to be reminded of the importance of academics during this season. I encourage you to utilize your academic review committee. It doesn't have to be all on you to come up with ideas or to reach out to members who you think may be especially challenged in converting to online learning. Utilize your committee members, utilize your executive board members, utilize your advisors to help you with that. I recommend making a schedule to chunk out your schedule. So saying from 1 to 3, you're going to be working on this course, on this assignment, studying for this test, and working on it during that time, and then also giving yourself that time off once that period has passed. I recommend for those that may be struggling currently, posting those calendars of when they're going to be spending time working on what tasks so you can revisit those times with those members. I recommend sticking to your instructor's schedule and watching the live versions of your classes if possible, if that's offered, so that you can continue that consistency and that structure. And I recommend having a member of your chapter that maybe traditionally took online classes come up with some tips that they can share with your members, because it may resonate more them coming up with tips because they have that experience with your campus rather than myself providing you tips, and they know it works. So read your syllabus. Don't be afraid to email your professor or attend office hours. If an instructor gives you online material, I recommend truly reading it and setting up your own schedule to provide yourself some structure. Those are all some general ideas. The ideas that you all mentioned have been fantastic, and I hope that that's been helpful to you. I would love to then open the floor for what additional questions do you all have or ideas do you want to share in these last few minutes together? Any additional questions about PassFail, about resources academically, or any other ideas that popped into anyone's head that they could share for the benefit of the group? Okay. Well, any last words from you, Lindsay? Any last bits of wisdom you'd want to share with everyone?
I would just say that this is definitely a weird time, and faculty recognize that it's a weird time, and ultimately, if they could be in the classroom with you, that's what they would prefer. So I know online instruction can be frustrating and it may not work for everyone, and that's okay. But there are ways that can, like different strategies that people could use to help them be successful in the course. And it might not be their like original idea of success, but this, I don't think people will forget about this semester in particular. So I'm hoping students are not being terribly hard on themselves if they're not performing at the level that they expect. And the last thing I will say is about the pass-fail option is that I have been encouraging my students, I think Gavin mentioned this earlier, that if you're doing well in a class like a B or better, there's really no reason to opt for pass-fail, in my personal opinion. And if you are looking into graduate or professional schools after graduation, it will be that more meaningful that you got like a B- in that particular course when you were moved to online instruction. So I know that some students may try to like game the system and like opt for pass fail and only choose like one class that they're getting an A in to have like a 4.0 GPA at the end of the semester. Graduate schools and professional schools, you know, will look at that and probably question like what was going on in that, you know, way. So just something to think about. But ultimately, you know, try not to be too hard on yourselves in this very, very weird time.
And just thank you for all of you. The chapter is looking for your leadership, and is appreciated, even if they don't say it all the time.
Thank you both. Well, ultimately, I hope the message that you leave with is that it's still the time to be talking about your education. It's still the time to be talking about academics, and that's one thing we shouldn't let go to the wayside as our normal has changed, as our day-to-day has changed. So Lindsay, Kathy, and I can remain on the video if anyone has any other questions that they think of, but I greatly appreciate your time and your investment in hearing wisdom and ideas about how to promote academic excellence within your chapter, and know that there are some additional educational programs that as a staff are working on. The next educational program is next Tuesday evening, and it is in regards to promoting friendship and brotherhood and mental health during this time. So that's a conversation that is reoccurring, but very important to support the mental health and well-being of our brothers, of our members, and as a reminder that brotherhood and friendship is the foundation of the fraternal experience. So thank you all so much, and we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
the
guys.
time, Nicole.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, lagged out. What happened?
Thank you both so much. I'm not quite sure if there
Thanks.